All right. Let's get into the last video on the psychological aspect of survivalism and surviving change and all sorts of wonderful stuff that could happen in life. So, the title of this is, and actually I wanted to do this for a long time, but I figured I'd let it be the last video. It's a video called Letting Go and the Dangers of Holding On to Things. And first it sounds like a self-help video or something. I assure you it's not. When we're faced with situations where we need to adapt quickly, or we need to change our mentality quickly because life as we know it has completely changed. If you're holding on to, dumb things from the past or foolish mindsets such as, racism or socialism is going to save us all, then you are going to be having some very rough times down the road, because it's going to stifle your ability to think on your feet and to be nimble, which you're going to need to be. So, usually I start out with something, some quote or scripture from the Bible. This one I won't. So I'm just going to have like a little phrase that I was taught over the years. And that's, sometimes in life we get second chances. Sometimes we don't make it past the first. A lot of times we get second chances in life, and every now and then you're out of luck. Bad dice roll. So, how does that pertain to the message that I'm trying to pass on in this video? It's primarily about how dangerous holding on to certain things can be, and kind of repeating the same mistakes over and over again because you're stuck with a certain mentality. You're not guaranteed that second chance. If you do something stupid enough, sometimes it's just that one chance that will just ruin you. You'll be flattened right then and there. So, talk about holding on to things. Well, that could mean a lot of things. A lot of times, people equate it with holding on to relationships. And that could be one of them. That's part of it. Part of what I'll talk about later. But mostly holding on to certain ideologies. And we're not in a race war. We're not in a war against this new black plague. It's not the black plague. It's just a form of of respiratory illness. It's not the greatest health crisis we've ever faced. We've faced plagues before. We've faced viruses before. We've faced flus before. Forgive me if I said placed before. But we faced certain circumstances before. So the most important thing is you've got to drop dangerous ideologies. We are in a war of ideology. Straight up. Now later on down the road, and I hope this doesn't happen, we're going to face this type of war. Fought by things like that. And even worse, weapons I don't even want to mention. Begins with nuclear. But that's a whole nother can of worms. Excuse me, puppy. It's National Dog Day and my dog wants attention right now, so I gotta give him attention while I'm making the video. So you'll have to excuse me if I get interrupted a bit. But he's a good boy. So, the pitfalls of certain ideologies. So I just mentioned we got to let go of certain ideologies. Letting go is very important. Well, what ideologies are we talking about here? there's a lot of different ideologies and mindsets in life that can derail you. And I'm going to talk about those, but I got to take this guy out. So just excuse me for 1 second. He's clawing at me right now. Okay, so what are some dangerous ideologies that we have to stop clinging to, that we have to let go of, that are prevalent to what's going on right now? Well, obviously one of them is living in continual fear. I mean, it's like one of the first things I talked about. Some people just love that perpetual state of fear. And once you get in it, it's just a cycle that's hard to get out of. But primarily, things that we got to let go of are bitterness, racism, which is an obvious one right now, and what we faced in the past. That kind of goes in line with bitterness, but past trauma. For some of us, some of that trauma is pretty deep. So, where do I begin? Subject of racism is just, the way I see it is weaponized tribalism. Okay, what is tribal? Tribalism is actually a very natural thing. Okay? You hang out with people that look like you, that talk like you, and back in the Stone Age and caveman times and all that stuff, that's what you did. And when someone came towards your camp or village or whatever that looked totally different, everybody would, kind of perk up and whatnot. It wasn't out of hatred. It was just like, what is this person about? So there's this natural inclination in us to be very skeptical of someone who's different. All right? And it's a totally natural thing. The problem is that in this foul year of 2020, the social engineers have taken this and ran with it. And what racism is, really, it's weaponized tribalism. They've taken our innate nature and they just absolutely distorted it and just filled it with complete hatred. And I don't want to sound cliche or like I'm virtue signaling or anything else like that. But that's what it is. It's weaponized tribalism. To now, instead of building communities and fighting the powers that be and fighting these evil controllers and trying to suppress the fear and trying to suppress bitterness and decay in our cities and communities and all this other stuff, we're beating each other over the head with something as stupid as this. And now you have police that, in one way, shape, or form, there was always issues with policing. But now, you look at police from as late as the late 90s, They still had their police blues on with the police caps and all this other stuff. You look at police now, they look like they're about to raid someone's house. And we're just talking about the average beat cop. He's all vested out with military boots and everything. Even Cranford, the town of Cranford, has an armored vehicle. Like, come on. But these things are being used to hurt people, and unfortunately, there is a big racial element in the court system. I mean, if you don't believe me, look at all the stupid marijuana arrests and all this other stuff. Come on. What is that guy smoking a joint? That guy smoking a joint, he's a bane to society. Really? No, it's an easy arrest, and the jails make money off of it. A lot of jails are now privatized, just to give you a heads up. But I'm segueing too much. So, racism, bitterness, and past trauma. Look, it's very easy to become bitter because of past failed relationships, past failed friendships, and especially one of the things that is so reoccurrent. People talk about what happened to them in high school. Sometimes even like middle school and stuff. It seems funny at first when you're older, but it leaves such a it's such a dramatic impact on people's lives. And what happens is they let it just permeate their very essence of who they are, and it just festers, and it literally pollutes their future. You know, throughout the years, it just kind of pollutes them. You know, maybe they were made fun of or picked on, or you know, they had bad relationships or something like that. And before you know it, they could be involved with substance abuse or crime or you know, abusive relationships that they keep going into cycles of. And I know this sounds like a no shit moment, but these are things that we have to start confronting and getting rid of now. Because when real stuff is going to be coming down, like more job losses, or, you know, I even heard that you know, we're going to have a really bad hurricane year or something. If you're so beaten down by bitterness and past trauma that you never confronted, that you never even bothered to confront, I mean, you could kiss your behind goodbye, because you're not going to have that motivation to prepare. You're not going to have that motivation to get ready, to fight through some bad stuff. You may even be riddled by substance abuse and addictions, because you're trying to mask over and suppress and numb the past trauma that you've been with. Now, look, I don't want to come across as judgy, because there's a lot of people who have been diagnosed with significant mental illnesses and significant physical ailments where they have to take certain medications just to get by. Not to get high, but just to get by. And I feel for those people. But, however, if you're taking stuff just to numb that pain, you have to face it. You can't just numb it. It always comes back. And then you need more and more and more to numb it. And before you know it, you're not praying to the Most High, or for my atheist friends, the giant spaghetti monster. You're praying to a bar of Xanax, or you're praying to a bottle, which is eventually going to run out. Don't think those supplies are infinite. They're not. So these are things you do have to confront. And it is an ugly cycle. The trauma and the substance abuse cycle is very harsh. And even more so, the depression and guilt cycle. That could kill a person. People have been driven to suicide over guilt and depression, over past traumas, over past failures. And it's easier said than done, but you are going to fail numerous times in life. The ones that are successful are the ones that just keep picking themselves up. They just keep at it. If I were to give anyone advice, it would be to live by 3 principles. And I myself am a hypocrite, because I've broken some of these rules. But it's to keep calm, keep sober, and keep at it. Calm the heck down, keep a clear head, and just keep going at it. Keep getting up. Even when you feel like you don't want it. So, these past traumas, they just fester, they well up. And I myself, like everybody, has fallen victim to this. Except I add in the element of wanting to hold on to things. Like if I fail at something, I want to hold on to things and just oh no, I could just make it right if I just hold on a little bit more, and then before I know it, not only am I harming myself, I'm harming those all around me, which is a rotten feeling. Because you're tearing yourself apart, and then you're dragging other people down with you. You have to learn to let go. And I've had numerous experiences. I've had relationships that I should have cut off, but because I was riddled with so much guilt and wanting to try to stay the course, I just kept holding on, and then it wound up just messing up everyone in the end. When I should have had the chutzpah, as my Jewish friends would say, or the guts to cut it right there and to take the L, to take the loss. Just be like, hey, I'm going to take the L, and then I'm going to get right back up, and I'm going to, treat things as if, it's a whole new day. For every failure you have in life, you're going to have another opportunity. It's only a failure if you don't learn from it. You can't hold on to failure. If you hold on to failure, that's where you really mess yourself up. That's where you hurt yourself, you hurt others, and I keep saying rot from the inside out. Literally, that's what happens. This is just going to build and build, and the guilt and the depression is just going to envelop you. It's going to engulf you. You're almost being embraced by death itself if you hold on to those failures. One of the recurring things that I've dealt with in my life is when you have to cut certain things off, such as relationships or friends. Let's just say they have a toxic personality, a toxic ideology. Maybe you have, especially after the elections of 2016, you have family members that, they're not even inviting each other for Thanksgiving anymore because of their political mindset or whatever. It's crazy. But with that said, if you just hold on to that and stew over someone who is basically cutting you out of their life just because of something silly, it's my experience in life. One of the most painful things that has to do with, I just mentioned, is this whole pain of being forgotten. Well, if I cut them off or whatever, or if I stand for what I believe in, which is what you're supposed to do, stand for what you believe in. Always fight for your freedom. Never give it up. You don't want to live on your knees. You may die on your feet. It's better than living on your knees. But you may have to do that alone, because you're going to have to push certain individuals away, and that pain of being totally forgotten and replaced, it's very harsh. For me, it's gut-wrenching. Because in this society, you will be replaced very quickly. I noticed that if you can't give people what they want today, they cut you off like this. And yeah, you stuck up for yourself. You stayed firm with what you believed in. But it's painful, very painful, when you get that cut off. And that's it. Even though it may be good for you, and maybe the others around you, it's still painful. For me, it's very gut-wrenching, and has stopped me many times from making the right choice, only to suffer even more later when the choices were taken out of my hands. For instance, it's a story something I went through today. Years ago, like 2009, in 2010, I used to be married. And I got, long story short, I got along well with the family and the in-laws and whatnot. And unfortunately today, one of family members of that person who I was married to, they passed away. They passed away a couple days ago. And I went to their wake today. And when you go to a showing, they usually have all these pictures all over the place of, happy moments of the past, of, significant milestones in their life and whatnot. And of course, I was not going to be in any of those photos. That would, you're not gonna have the ex-husband in any of those photos. That's just silly. But still, nonetheless, even though it was expected, it was hard seeing it all. I felt like a ghost. It was really gut-wrenching. I had to compose myself because it's like, hey, this isn't about me. This is about the person who passed away. Now, on the bright side, when I went up to the family members to pay my respects, they seemed happy to see me. Now, obviously, my ex-wife probably wasn't happy to see me, but nonetheless, the rest of the family members, they were happy to see me. And I was happy to see them. And, the uncles were there, and her brothers were there and stuff. And, it was just like, for that moment, it was just like old times. They were goofing around me and stuff. And what was really touching is when one of the uncles said, he says, you know what, I know it's been a long time, but, all the crazy impressions that you would do of people and, all the pranks that we'd pull on each other. Every now and then, something is brought up, and we miss you every now and then. And I was taken back when he said that, because even though I was let go, and I had to let go of them, I wasn't forgotten. So here I was just feeling all ripped up inside, looking at these pictures, kind of sulking, like, I'm just totally, I'm a ghost now. And after the interactions I had with the family and just talking, no, I wasn't completely forgotten, and it was something to hear that. It really was. I kind of well up while I'm talking about it. But you could see it's a strong emotion. Because really, what everybody wants to do in life, they want to leave some sort of legacy. They want to be remembered. But it is a powerful emotion, and that can sometimes overtake you. Like I said, you get enveloped with that depression. You get enveloped with the bitterness and all sorts of stuff. And you got to shake that. It was nice seeing everyone at that wake. It was. It was rough seeing a family member that I cared about it was very rough. He was a really good dude. We had a lot of good times together. But it was good to see everyone and to have a positive reaction. But with that said, I'm not going to be going to any of their barbecues or anything like that. Because even though I'm not holding on to all that anymore, and they certainly can't hold on to me, it doesn't mean you have to forget. You can look back with fond memories, and you don't have to erase it. It's like Facebook. Like, yeah, I understand you have exes and stuff, and you got to get rid of the pictures when you got a new person in your life. I always consider that sad. Yeah, you got to let them go. Doesn't mean you got to forget. So anyhow, yeah, being forgotten, very powerful memory. I mean, very powerful emotion. It's something that you can't let overtake you. You have to have a clear mind. You got to be nimble. You got to be sober. You can't let past traumas overtake you and drive you into substance abuse or any of the other stuff. Now's the time to be mentally strong, have that clear head. And things like this, racism, bitterness, depression, trauma, all that stuff can just really derail you. Because you could have all the gear in the world. You could have a house built out of brick and stainless steel, all sorts of stuff. If you don't have the willpower to survive, if you don't have the willpower to adapt and change, you're a dead duck in the water. And you got to realize that despite all you've went through, you can be capable of incredible things when you put your head in the game. So, I'm going to leave off with a little allegory. And it's an allegory that I call the elephant and the sapling. I don't know if you've heard this or not. So, story goes, there's this little baby elephant. And the owner, what he does to keep that elephant from straying off, little baby elephant, ties it to a sapling. This elephant's a little thing. So he equates this little creature equates it with, being tied up. He can't move anywhere. Meanwhile, this elephant grows and grows. He's still tied to the same little tree. Because this isn't a big oak tree. This is a sapling for a very small plant. This elephant grows and grows and grows. And he's still being tied to the same sapling, so he doesn't go anywhere. Still being tied to the same little branch. Until this elephant's gigantic, huge, several tons. But he still doesn't go anywhere. Because he's so enveloped with the image that this little twig basically projects of, I can't move anywhere because I've been tied to this thing my whole life. And I don't have the power and strength because I never was able to move before. Meanwhile, the elephant could just take one step and tear that thing right out and be free. That equates to many things that we face in life. We're so pounded by the fear and the trauma and not being able to take a step out of our bubble. We're not able to let go of our bubble of fear and doubt and all this other stuff. That right then and there, you could be King Kong and it doesn't matter because you got the mentality of someone who's broken, of someone who is just totally enveloped into this, little twig that he's tied to. It's holding him back. So it'll stop you, from advancing your career or pursuing a good family life or being able to make it through when others can't. So keep that in mind. Don't be held down by this little sapling. You could become the elephant. You could become that powerful creature psychologically to break through all that. Being a fighter is not about this. This don't mean anything. This is going to go away in age. It's about this. It's about your psychological strength. So with that said, I wish everyone Godspeed. And the next set of videos, we get into the fun geeky stuff like gear and all this other stuff. Should be fun. So, thank you for listening.